Good morning, beloved ones. So this is a long greeting. Turn to someone and tell them, thank you for not being a fair-weathered true student. Thank you for not being a fair-weathered true student. Yes, thank you for not being a fair-weathered true student. We want to be like the post office. Rain, sleet, snow, sun, ice. We are going to gather together as those wonderful songs that the choir sang. We're coming to magnify. We're coming to glorify. We're coming to raise up this vibration that is Christ in us and in everyone. And there's something powerful about coming together, about being in the number, about being in the presence of one another. We could all sit home or sit in a cave and reach enlightenment by ourselves. But what fun would that be, right? We are blessed when we come into each other's space. So do not take it lightly when we gather on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday evening or for a class, because something powerful is happening. We are being blessed by each other and blessing each other. We are raising the vibration exponentially greater than we can do by ourselves. So I thank you and I applaud you for when it looks like it might be icky outside or raining or snowing or whatever it is, because it doesn't take but a thought to say, I think I'm going to stay home and in bed. Because I get those thoughts myself. So to actually make a conscious choice to be here, that's a blessing. And you deserve a round of applause. You know what? You deserve a standing ovation. Give yourselves a standing ovation. Yes. Give yourselves a standing ovation. Yes, because we can all make a choice to do something different. Well, we are in the midst of the harvest season. Such a beautiful time because the beauty, it's sort of like nature decides to show off. Spring comes and it's just awesome and it's beautiful, but the fall is like nature says, I'm going to show off. I'm going to show my true colors. And it's just such a wonderful time of year. And it's an opportunity for us to reap what is sown. And to receive, a blessing for the effort that we have put forth. Last week, I spoke about, or the title was, Plant a Seed and Reap a Blessing. Plant a seed and reap a blessing. And we talked about the power of a seed, and that within the power of a seed is its ability to contain other seeds within its nature, right? That a seed has infinite potential because within it there are other seeds, and that seed can grow exponentially and can yield blessings ad infinitum, right? That seeds grow and unfold. However, that can only happen under one condition. That can only happen if the seed is planted, or if the seed is replanted or given an opportunity to reproduce itself. Here's the thing. There's a scripture that came to me while I was driving. I said to my mother, look up this scripture. I wanted to find it, but this is what it says in John 12, verse 24. And this is Jesus talking, and he's really talking about himself, but I think it's appropriate. He says, I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone. But its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives. And then the Message says it this way: unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it is buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. See, there's something that is spiritually powerful, innate. That power is innate within the seed to grow exponentially. If it is what? Planted or replanted. Because if all that the seed produces is totally consumed, right, then the blessings cease. Think about it. If you're reaping a harvest and you consume the total harvest, then the blessings cease. Therefore, it's prudent for us to be able to save some of the seeds, to save some of the produce, to save something that has given birth to itself, so that there's always an opportunity for a new crop to be produced and blessed, right? So we want to figure this out. All right, what can we do? You always want to have perhaps a remnant, so to speak. Now, when I thought about having a remnant, Spirit said, well, go look up the word remnant. So I did, and the word remnant means a small remaining quantity of something, or it could mean a residue, or, and this was interesting, or the definition was leftovers. What is left? Now, I don't know about you, but who wants leftovers? I don't really want leftovers. I want kind of the best. So if we're going to plant, if you're going to replant some seeds for a new harvest, you would want to make sure that you planted the best seeds, the cream of the crop, right? Not what's left over, but actually the first fruits, the best seeds. Because think about it, if you're going to produce something for the next year, you want it to be as good, or if not even better, than the fruit that you ate in this season. You don't take, if you're going to breed the best cows or whatever, you don't take the weakest cow and breed it with another weak cow and expect to get what? Prime beef? No. You want to breed it with the best, so that each time it produces something that's greater and greater and better and better. And in order for that to happen, you must use the best. You don't use the leftovers. So here is where I began to think that the concept of tithing plays a key role in this process, because it was customary and biblical law that families and farmers, not only just farmers, but families, give a tenth of their crops or their herds back to God or back to the place of worship, and in addition to the Levites. And the Levites were the people who maintained the temple, and they didn't farm for a living, they didn't go out and work for a living, so they were expected to be taken care of by the community. And here's the kicker. When these families and farmers came to bring their tithes into the worship place, it couldn't be about giving a remnant. It couldn't be about giving from what was left over, because it said it had to be their first fruits. It had to be what was considered the best. Their best oils, their best wine, their best of herd, their best seeds. They were constantly being asked to make sacrifices back then, literally and figuratively, right? And so part of a sacrifice, you didn't take the weakest of the herd or a goat or whatever, or ram, to sacrifice. No. It couldn't be the worst. It had to be without blemish. You look in the Bible, it says whatever you're giving to sacrifice, it has to be without blemish, meaning it had to be spotless. It had to be the highest and the best. that you were offering, that you were giving. It was actually against the law to give God anything less than the best. Against the law. Wow. Someone say, offer the best and there'll be no mess. Offer the best and there'll be no mess. That's right. No less than your best. See, that's what God requires. Nothing less than your best. Listen to the words from the book of Deuteronomy. And we're in the Old Testament because this whole concept of sowing and reaping and tithing, a lot of it starts in the Old Testament. And I'm reading from Deuteronomy 14, verse 22 to 23. And this one is from the New Living Translation. You must set aside a tithe of your crops, 1/10 of all the crops you harvest each year. Bring this tithe to the designated place of worship, the place the Lord your God chooses for his name to be honored, and eat it there in his presence. See, that's what we missed, that the tithe was brought in, but it was also consumed and to be enjoyed. It says in some scripture to enjoy with the family and friends. But you must do it in the presence, in that place that's designated as a place for worship. And then it says, this applies to your tithes of grain, new wine, olive oil, and the firstborn males of your flocks and herds. Doing this will teach you always to fear the Lord your God. And then it goes on to talk about every third year you have to bring everything in to help feed the Levites, who were the priests. And here's what it says in the Message, the same thing. Make an offering of 10%, a tithe of all the produce which grows in your fields year after year. Bring this into the presence of God, your God, at the place he designates for worship, and there eat the tithe from your grain, wine, and oil, and the firstborn from your herds and flocks. And in this way you will learn to live in deep reverence before God, your God, as long as you live. So, to make an offering or to give a tithe, 10%, was considered to be a way to show deep reverence for God. So that you would learn, it says, the scripture says that you would learn to live in deep reverence for God. Why? Because you would not only be recognizing God as the source, because God is the source of everything, right? So you would not only, when you give this back to God, or you tithe, whatever it is, the oil, the wine, the herd, what you're doing is you are giving, not only recognizing God as source, but that you're actually giving the very best of what was given to you. Not a remnant, but a tithe. Not a remnant, but a tithe. And there's a difference. See, because a remnant, what? A remnant is from the leftover. Whereas the other is it's off the top. The firstborn, the very best. And this is important because, you know, if you go to God saying, I'm going to give you my remnant, I'm going to give you my leftovers, don't complain when God gives you some of his leftovers. Right? Because here's the thing. Well, you know, we want God to give us the very best. Do we not? Is there anybody here who does not want God to give them? When you pray, do you say, can you just give me a leftover piece? I'll just take, you know, a little bit of it. No, you go asking for the very best, right? So we want God to give us the very best, yet we hesitate in giving our very best. And we want to receive it, but we don't necessarily want to give it. But here's the secret. Here's the secret to a spiritual law. The law is, give, and you shall receive. And the law is, the measure you give is the measure you will receive. Now, there's one exception to this law. The measure you give is the measure you will receive. The exception is when it comes to God. Because whatever is given in as a tithe to God or the things of God, it's actually multiplied. You actually receive greater, more than you give. You actually receive a blessing, because this giving, this tithe is like a seed. When you tithe, you're planting a seed, but a seed has what? Infinite potential to bless and bless and bless and bless. And when you tithe, it through a spiritual law of increase, it's like a seed. It contains infinite blessings within that. It says in Mark 4:24, unless a seed is put into the ground and dies, it just remains a seed. But the moment it is buried and planted in the ground, that seed then increases and multiplies within itself. See, this is a powerful spiritual law that's taking place when we understand how to use it. That's how tithing works. But he's also talking, when Jesus said that particular quote, he was also talking about, he had just given the parable of the seeds. And what he's talking about is, it's basically consciousness, right? Whenever you give, it's sort of your consciousness. What you do either produces. If you give sparingly, you receive sparingly. If you give joyously, you receive joyously. It's just the way it is. So it's the consciousness that sometimes people get hung up on, oh, it's 10%. It's the consciousness. Even if it's a penny, it's the consciousness in which you give. The measure you mete out is the measure you're going to meet, right? The consciousness with which you do anything. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about how you're living your life. Do you give your best, or do you give a remnant? You have to ask. I'm going to give, I'll share. When you go to, give a gift, do you give the best gift you can to someone, or do you find, well, let me see if I can go find, I want to give them something, but I'm going to find the cheapest thing I can find, because after all, it's the thought that counts. Come on, we've said that and we've done that. But that's a consciousness, that's a mindset, you see. What do you expect to receive? The best or what's left over? I don't think there's anybody here who expects to receive the leftovers. So this whole notion of you receive what you give, that's the law. The law is giving and receiving, but the notion is you receive what you give. And that concept is lost on many people, because they fail to take note that what they have, what they've received, is directly related to what they have given. And we're not talking just money here. We're talking about in life in general. It's how do you give to life, your life. Do you want love? You've got to do what? Give love. Do you want more peace and joy? You've got to give peace and joy. You want understanding? You want to be understood? You've got to give understanding. That which you desire, you must give. And you might say, well, I don't have enough to give. I want a new house. I don't have a house. How can I give a house to get a house? No. Don't be so literal. It's about the consciousness. Are you giving praise for where you are, for the house you're living in right now? See? Are you doing that? And if you can give to that and praise that and affirm that and be thankful for that, then that's giving. Then you receive. It's all a matter of what you're doing, and you want to make sure that what you're giving is your very best, because the quality of your consciousness is going to be the quality of the things that you receive. So the question I ask is, what are you willing to give to your life? We want life, but what are you willing to give to your own life? Because the energy, the thoughts, the deeds, the actions, everything that you do and think and feel are seeds that you are sowing into your life right now. Every thought, feeling, emotion, perception, value is sowing a seed into your life that is going to produce at some point. So the question you might have to ask is, what are you reaping? Do you like what you're reaping? Do you want whatever it is that you are reaping in your life? And if the answer is yes, if you're reaping a good life, that's great. Then I say, continue on, plant more, give more, do more, tithe more, replant your seeds, all of that. But if the answer is no, if you don't really want to have what you seem to be reaping, then there's some new sowing you need to do, some new replanting that has to happen. And it has to be a replanting where? In the consciousness. A replanting in your perception, a new shift, a new change in your consciousness, new seeds that you are garnering. Because see, you can't sow apple seeds and expect to get oranges. It doesn't work that way. By their fruits, you are what? Known. So look at the fruit of your life. That's going to tell you what you've been sowing, what consciousness. So here's the thing. You want to be conscious of the seeds that you're sowing and the thoughts and the feelings and the attitudes that you're holding in consciousness and planting in the soil of your heart and mind. However, not only do you want to plant good seeds, because he gives the whole parable. We know the parable of the farmer who planted some seeds, some on good soil, some on rocky soil, some on, different kinds of different levels of consciousness, which produce different levels of seeds or roots that never even were able to go down deep into the soil. So the thing is, not only do you want to plant some good seeds in the good soil of your heart and mind, but you want to do so generously. You want to cultivate a spirit of generosity or of giving, and you want to do so in this consciousness of being willing to do it willingly, lovingly, joyfully. It's the consciousness. If you do it out of fear, you're sowing fear. You can give $1 million, but if you're doing it out of fear, you are sowing fear. I know a couple of people who have some millions, and it's not the amount. They are misusing how their millions and their billions. I'm not calling any names. But they're going to reap some stuff. You see, you can reap it, but you're not going to keep it. I'm just speaking truth here, how the law works, right? It's going to come back at some point. This is the way life is. So it's doing something in the right attitude and consciousness, willingly, lovingly, joyfully. This is so important to be of this consciousness. And so we're not talking just about money, but how you approach your life in itself. Give the very best. Are you willing to give your time? Time to your goals, time to your dreams. You have them, but you don't give the time. You're not even tithing that to yourself. You want to achieve something, but you're not giving the energy that it would take to plant it and to nourish that dream and to cultivate the dream and to act on the dream. You just say you want it. Remember, last week's talk, I said you can love a flower. It was a quote, right? You can either like a flower or love a flower. When you like a flower, you pluck it. And when you pluck it, you get to enjoy it for that time. But when you love a flower, you water it daily. And by watering it daily, you get to what? Enjoy it. Right? So this is a whole thing here. Are you giving your time and your talent and your treasure to other people? Do you have time? I know people who just don't even have time for other people. They say, I'm so busy. But sometimes, can you stop and acknowledge that child and talk to a child who's maybe talking nonsense and telling you about what their dream is and how they want to be? What is it? We was laughing, a superhero. Can you just say, how wonderful? Can you get down and really give your time to acknowledge how great it is to want to be a superhero? You don't know what that might do for that child. Or maybe there's an elderly person, your neighbor, who you know is there, who lives alone. Can you knock on the door and just say, hey, neighbor, I'm here. Anything you need? Can I do anything for you? Can you offer your time? Can we slow down and be present for one another? Can we be present for God? Can we, give to the things that we think are precious? And do you share what you think is precious? Or do you share what you desire? Because this is the spiritual secret to having a full life. This is the secret to living the fullness of life. To be blessed infinitely is to simply give whatever it is you have. Whatever you give of your character, give of your being, give of the most precious thing you have is yourself. And if you can give that, an affirmation, a smile, a word of encouragement, lifting somebody up, holding somebody's hand, giving understanding, being present, smiling, letting somebody in the traffic when you're driving. That's a good one for me. I know my growing edges, you know. And whenever I do it, I feel, oh yeah, wow, I can wait a second. Even if I'm in a hurry, I can wait a second. I can give of that. See, here's what happens when you have a spirit and a consciousness of generosity or of giving. What happens is you activate the power of the seed. You activate the power of the seed, which is when you give or plant or replant, you're actually making room for greater growth. It's so magical, it's so wonderful. You know, when you're making room for greater growth. There's a saying that nature abhors a what? A vacuum. We've all heard that saying. Well, this is true, because what nature will do is rush to fill an empty space. Well, the same can be said of God. God rushes to fill itself when there's an opening, when there's a vehicle, when there's a channel through which it can be expressed. And giving becomes a channel. It becomes a channel through which God can now express. Giving activates the flow of the flow of divine blessings, the flow of abundance. And where there's a channel and a vehicle, God just whoops. I'll use you, and I'll use you, and I'll use that situation. It loves to fill itself in a vehicle, in an expression. And giving just gives God the opportunity to fulfill itself. It just gives good an opportunity to manifest itself. There's a quote, a couple of quotes that I wanted to end with that I loved. One is from Jack Addington. And he said, the person who gives of himself and his substance, no matter how little, opens the door for life to pour in, not only compensating him for his gift, but increasing the gift. The more one gives, the more that person is able to receive. And the Prophet Muhammad said, a man's true wealth is the good he does in the world. Are you rich? And my favorite one comes from Rumi, who I love as a poet. And Rumi said, be a lamp or a lifeboat or a ladder. Help someone's soul to heal. Walk out of your house like a shepherd. Isn't that beautiful? Be a lamp, a lifeboat, a ladder. Help someone's soul to heal, because everybody here is in need of healing. What if we were to help each other's soul to heal? Be a lifeboat, be a ladder, but I love the favorite one is walk out of your house like a shepherd. Meaning I'm going to walk out of my house offering guidance, wisdom, help, support, whatever it is. And I like to put it this way too. When you walk out of your house, ask yourself, what is it that I can give today? How many people can I bless today? What can I give of myself today? We should be seeking to give something of ourselves every single day. Not what can I get, but what can I give? What goodness, because this world is not going to change unless we become the change we wish to see. What good shall we give today? What good am I giving? I'm giving everything I have today. But maybe I'll smile at you, or maybe I'll connect. But find at least a minimum of 3 things to give away of yourself. And when I say things, I'm not talking material things. I'm just talking about your essence. Find something. Walk out of your house like a shepherd. Walk out of your house like a wealthy person. I have riches to give. I have me. I have my essence. I have my soul. I have my love. I'm going to give that away. Because you can only have what you're willing to give. So whatever it is, I'm going to give my best. And when I give my best, God does the rest. When I give my best, God does the rest. If you don't want no mess, you better give the bless. and the blessings just multiply ad infinitum. So every seed you plant, everything you do that speaks to the good, blesses you and it blesses this world. So I'm grateful and thankful that you choose to give your very best to this ministry. You've already done so today just by being here. So I thank you, I bless you, I receive all that you are, and I see God multiplying his goodness. For every drop of rain, it's like a seed being planted and nourished and unfolding infinite blessings for you. That's what I'm seeing and holding for every soul that is here today. Give the best blessings, and namaste. Blessings.